Have you ever wondered what separates the truly great companies, the ones that last for a century or more, from the ones that are just, well, good for a while? Is it just luck? A brilliant idea? Some kind of once-in-a-generation leader? Well, a massive study called Built to Last actually spent 6 years digging into that exact question. And what they found? It pretty much flips everything we think we know on its head.
So just think about it for a second. When you picture a legendary company, what's the first thing that pops into your head as the secret to their success? What's the common story we all hear?
I bet it sounds something like this, right? It's usually about some singular genius, a brilliant light bulb idea or a super charismatic visionary leader. Or it's about the strategy, this ruthless focus on crushing the competition with some kind of master plan. And it all sounds perfectly reasonable because, well, it's the story we've been told over and over again.
Well, get ready for a plot twist. The researchers behind Built to Last took this incredibly deep historical dive into the world's most successful companies, and what they found was that all of these widely held beliefs, they're basically myths. They just don't hold up when you really look at the data.
Now, you might be asking, why does cracking this code even matter? Well, look at this chart. It's kind of mind-blowing. If you invested just $1 back in 1926, the general stock market would have turned it into about $415 by 1990. Not bad. A group of other pretty good companies would have done even better, getting you to $955. But that same dollar invested in what they call the visionary companies, it would have grown to over $6,000. That's a performance gap of 15 times the market. We're not talking about being a little better. This is a completely different universe of success.
So to understand that incredible difference, we first have to just dismantle these myths. And the very first one to fall is that idea of the charismatic genius leader.
The study found that what really sets these visionary leaders apart isn't their ability to come up with one brilliant idea. That's just telling the time. Instead, their real focus is on being clock builders.
So what does that mean? Well, a time teller is a genius with a great idea. They can look at the market and tell you exactly what time it is, and they hit it just right. They're the star of the show. A clock builder, on the other hand, is completely obsessed with creating an organization, a clock, that can tell the time forever, long after they're gone. For them, the ultimate creation isn't a product, it's the company itself. And this quote just illustrates the point perfectly. Hewlett-Packard didn't start with some world-changing product idea. Bill Hewitt himself said they started by trying anything. Automatic urinal flushers, bowling foul indicators, literally just to make a buck. They built the company first, and the great ideas came later, from the organization they had built.
So the crucial point is this. Visionary leaders are architects. They're focused on designing an organization that can innovate and thrive for generations, through multiple product cycles and multiple leaders. The company, that's the masterpiece.
Okay, so if a leader's job is to build the company itself, that forces a totally different way of thinking. You can't just focus on one thing. And this leads us to the next huge idea, escaping what the book calls the tyranny of the or by embracing the genius of the and.
Most companies, and let's be honest, most of us in our own lives operate from this place of false choices, this tyranny of the or. We think we have to choose. Do we focus on our ideals, or do we focus on profit? Do we maintain stability, or do we push for crazy change? It always feels like this impossible balancing act where you can only have one or the other. But here's the kicker. Visionary companies just flat out reject these false choices. They operate with what's called the genius of the and. They figure out how to have a powerful purpose and make a ton of profit, how to maintain stability and drive radical progress, how to have conservative practices and go after audacious goals. They don't choose, they pursue both extremes at the exact same time. But wait a minute, pursuing both extremes at once? Doesn't that just sound like a recipe for chaos? So how do they actually do it? Well, the study found the answer lies in this single, really powerful dynamic that acts as the company's engine. You have to preserve the core while you stimulate progress.
What's so cool about this is how it basically splits the company's universe in two. On one side, you have this fixed, rock-solid core ideology. These are the essential values and the company's purpose, its fundamental reason for being. This stuff is sacred. It almost never changes. And on the other side, you have this relentless, almost primal drive for progress, where literally everything that is not core, is open to change, improvement, and reinvention.
A key tool for stimulating all that progress is something they famously called a bag, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Now, this isn't your average quarterly target. A bag is a clear, compelling, and honestly pretty scary goal that acts like a powerful catalyst. It unifies the entire organization and creates this huge forward momentum. It's a mountain you decide to climb together.
And these aren't just empty slogans. I mean, think about Boeing literally betting the entire company on the 747, or Ford's mission to democratize the automobile, or Sony setting out to change the entire world's perception of Japanese products from cheap junk to a symbol of quality. These are massive, industry-changing mountains that they chose to climb.
But progress isn't always about one giant, planned leap. It can also be evolutionary. Visionary companies create an environment where they can basically try a lot of stuff and keep what works. It's this messy, creative process of experimentation and variation, followed by the discipline to select and amplify the ideas that actually pan out.
A perfect example of this is Johnson & Johnson. They were a medical supply company, right? Well, they accidentally stumbled into the consumer business with baby powder. And then they did it again with Band-Aids, which was invented by an employee for his wife who's always cutting herself in the kitchen. These weren't part of some grand strategic plan. They were just these little opportunistic mutations that the company was smart enough to recognize and pour resources into.
So you've got this stable core ideology and this relentless drive for progress happening at the same time. But how do you make sure everyone in the organization actually lives and breathes it? The answer is the final piece of the puzzle, the power of total alignment, which creates what the authors call a cult-like culture. And this quote just nails the intensity. These cultures are not for everybody. There's really no middle ground. You either embrace the core ideology with a passion and you thrive, or the organization's immune system will basically identify you as a foreign body and push you out. It's that black and white.
Take Nordstrom, for instance. Their core ideology is all about heroic customer service. To make this real, every new hire, a Nordie, starts at the very bottom stocking shoes. They're constantly immersed in stories of customer service legends, and their performance is judged by their peers on how well they fit this ideal. If you don't embody it, the system, as the study says, will quickly eject you.
And that's the secret sauce right there, total alignment. When your hiring process, your training, your reward systems, your strategy, when every single signal in the organization is reinforcing that core ideology, the vision goes from being just words on a wall to a living, breathing reality.
So the most important thing to take away from all this is that Built to Last isn't a recipe book or a simple checklist of things to do. It represents a fundamental shift in how you think about building an organization, a shift from focusing on short-term goals to focusing on long-term endurance.
And this really leaves us with the central question to think about. For any company, any team, or any project, are you just focused on having a great idea for right now, on telling the time? Or are you investing your energy in building something that can endure, innovate, and thrive long into the future? Are you building a clock?